Troilus and Cressida. By William Shakespeare. Troilus and Cressida is a tragedy by William Shakespeare. Believed to have been written in 1602. It was described by Frederick S. Bowes as one of Shakespeare's problem plays. The play ends on a very bleak note with the death of the noble Trojan Hector, and destruction of the love between Troilus and Cressida. The work has in recent years stimulated exceptionally lively critical debate. Troilus and Cressida is set during the later years of the Trojan War, faithfully following the plotline of the Iliad from Achilles' refusal to participate in battle, to Hector's death. Essentially, two plots are followed in the play. In one, Troilus, a Trojan prince, son of Priam, woos Cressida, another Trojan. They profess their undying love, before Cressida is exchanged for a Trojan prisoner of war. As he attempts to visit her in the Greek camp, Troilus glimpses Diomedes flirting with his beloved Cressida, and decides to avenge her perfidy. While this plot gives the play its name, it accounts for only a small part of the play's runtime. The majority of the play revolves around the leaders of the Greek and Trojan forces, Agamemnon and Priam, respectively. Agamemnon and his cohorts attempt to get the proud Achilles to return to battle and face Hector, who sends the Greeks a letter telling them of his willingness to engage in one-on-one combat with a Greek soldier. Ajax is originally chosen as this combatant, but makes peace with Hector before they are able to fight. Achilles is prompted to return to battle only after his protege Patroclus is killed by Hector before the Trojan walls. A series of skirmishes conclude the play, during which Achilles catches Hector and has the Myrmidons kill him. The conquest of Troy is left unfinished, as the Trojans learn of the death of their hero. Act 1. Scene 1. The play opens with a prologue, an actor dressed as a soldier, who gives us the background to the plot, which takes place during the Trojan War, immortalized in Greek mythology and Homer's Iliad. The war occurs because a Trojan prince, Paris, has stolen the beautiful Helen from her husband, King Menelaus of Sparta, and carries her home to Troy with him. In response, Menelaus gathers his fellow Greek kings, and they sail to Troy hoping to capture the city and reclaim Helen. Within the walls of Troy, Prince Troilus complains to Padarus that he is unable to fight because of heartache. He is desperately in love with Padarus's niece, Cressida. Padarus complains that he has been doing his best to further Troilus's pursuit of his niece, and that he has received small thanks for his labors. After he departs, Troilus remarks that Padarus has been growing irritable lately. As he ponders, the Trojan commander Aeneas comes in, bringing news that Paris has been wounded in combat with Menelaus. As the noise of battle comes in off stage, Troilus agrees to join his Trojan comrades on the field. Scene 2. In another part of the city, Cressida converses with her servant, who recounts how a Greek warrior named Ajax, a valiant but stupid man, managed to overcome the great Trojan prince Hector the previous day, and that Hector is fighting furiously because of this defeat. Cressida is joined by Padarus, and they discuss the Trojan princes, with Padarus taking the unlikely position that Troilus is a greater man than Hector. As they converse, several Trojan lords pass by them returning from battle, including Antenor, Aeneas, Hector, and Paris. Padarus praises each one, but tells his niece that none of them can match Troilus. He then leaves Cressida, promising to bring a token from Troilus. Alone, Cressida says that while she returns Troilus's feelings, she is holding him off. She is enjoying his pursuit of her. Scene 3. In the Greek camp, the great general and King Agamemnon is conversing with his lieutenants and fellow kings. He asks why they seem so glum and downcast, for although their 7-year siege of Troy has met little success so far, they should welcome the adversity that the long war represents, since only in difficult times can greatness emerge. Nestor, the oldest of the Greek commanders, cites examples of how heroism emerges from hardship. In response, Ulysses expresses his deep respect for what they have said, but points out that the Greek army is facing a crisis not because of the duration of the war, but because of a breakdown in authority within the Greek camp. Instead of being united, they are divided into factions. Achilles refuses to fight, and instead sits in his tent while his protege Patroclus makes fun of the Greek commanders. Others, like Ajax and his foul-mouthed slave Thersites, follow this example, and so the entire army is corrupted. The others agree that this is a great problem, and as they discuss what is to be done, Aeneas appears under a flag of truce, bringing a challenge from Hector. The Trojan prince offers to fight any Greek lord in single combat, with the honor of their respective wives as the issue. The Greeks agree to find a champion and offer Aeneas hospitality. As Aeneas is led away, Ulysses tells Nestor that this challenge is truly directed at Achilles, since only Achilles could match the great Hector in battle. But to have Achilles fight Hector would be dangerous, because if Achilles lost, it would dishearten the entire army. Therefore, Ulysses suggests, they should have Ajax fight Hector instead. Even if Ajax loses, they can still claim that Achilles would have won in his place. At the same time, by choosing Ajax as their champion, they will infuriate Achilles and perhaps goad him into rejoining the war, bringing with him all his soldiers. Nestor, impressed with Ulysses' intelligence, agrees to the plan. Act 2. Scene 1. In the Greek camp, Ajax summons his slave Thersites, and orders him to find out the nature of the proclamation that has just been posted. Thersites, a foul-mouthed ruffian, refuses to obey and instead curses his master and the Greeks with equal vigor, provoking Ajax to beat him. Achilles and Patroclus come upon them and he includes them in his curses. Offended at Patroclus' request he stop. He replies, "I will hold my peace when Achilles' brooch bids me, shall I?" The term in the 16th century meant, among other things, a pointed rod, spit or pricker, implying that Achilles and Patroclus were lovers and further demeaning Achilles' masculinity. They send him away, and Achilles tells Ajax the news of Hector's challenge to any brave Greek warrior. The selection of the warrior has been put to a lottery, otherwise, Achilles says as he leaves, he would have been the only possible choice, a remark that produces a sneer from Ajax. Scene 2. In Troy, King Priam and his sons debate the wisdom of continuing the war, when they can end it by returning Helen to the Greeks. Hector, supported by his brother Helenus, argues eloquently that while the theft of Helen may have been a brave act, she cannot be worth the great and bloody price they are paying to keep her. When he is done speaking, his sister Cassandra, a prophetess who is considered mad, dashes in and cries that if they do not let Helen go, Troy will burn. When she is gone, Troilus dismisses her warning as ravings, and argues that they must keep Helen for the sake of their honor, and Paris supports him. Hector retorts that this is why young men cannot be trusted to make moral decisions, since passion overwhelms their reason. But Troilus says that Helen is more than a woman, she is a theme of honor and renown. And Hector yields and agrees to continue the war. He goes on to report the challenge that has been sent out to the Greeks, and how he hopes it will bring Achilles to the field. Scene 3. Alone, Thersites sneers at the pretensions of both Ajax and Achilles. When Patroclus and Achilles appear, he calls them fools. Patroclus moves to strike him, but Achilles holds him off. They see the Greek commanders Agamemnon, Ulysses, Nestor, and Diomedes approaching, accompanied by Ajax, and Achilles quickly retires to his tent. When Agamemnon asks to see him, Patroclus tells the general that Achilles is ill. Agamemnon grows angry, but Achilles refuses to emerge, and tells Ulysses, who goes in to see him, that he still refuses to fight the Trojans. Agamemnon suggests that Ajax go in and plead with Achilles. But Ulysses declares that doing so would be insulting to Ajax, and then he, with the other Greek commanders, praises Ajax profusely, saying that he is the best of their warriors. They agree to leave Achilles in his tent, and decide that Ajax will be their champion against Hector the next day. Act 3. Scene 1. In Troy, Padarus converses with a servant while he waits to speak with Paris and Helen. When they come in, he compliments Helen profusely, and asks her to excuse Troilus if Priam asks about him at dinner that night. Paris and Helen ask where Troilus will be dining, and Padarus refuses to tell him, but they both guess that he will be in pursuit of Cressida. And they make bawdy jokes about it as they depart to greet the returning warriors. Scene 2. Padarus finds Troilus pacing about impatiently in an orchard, and assures him that his desire for Cressida will soon be satisfied. He goes out, leaving Troilus giddy with expectation, and brings in Cressida. After urging them to embrace, Padarus departs. Left alone, they profess their love for one another, and each pledges to be faithful to the other. He reassures her and again pledges to be faithful, declaring that thereafter history will say of all lovers that they were as true as Troilus. Cressida declares that if she ever strays from him, she hopes that people will say of false lovers that they were as false as Cressida. Padarus declares that if ever the pair prove false, may all pitiful goers between be called after his name. Scene 3. Meanwhile, in the Greek encampment, Cressida's father, Calchas, who has betrayed Troy in order to join the Greeks, asks the Greek general to grant him a favor. He asks that they exchange the Trojan commander Antenor for his daughter, so that he might be reunited with her. Agamemnon agrees, and orders Diomedes to supervise the exchange. On Ulysses's advice, the Greek commanders then file past Achilles' tent, and scorn the proud warrior, ignoring his greetings and making him uneasy. He goes to Ulysses and asks him why he is being scorned, and Ulysses tells him that he is no longer a hero and he will be forgotten quickly. He tells, and suggests that Achilles could restore his fame and honor if he stopped dallying with enemy women and took the field. When Ulysses is gone, Patroclus tells Achilles to follow Ulysses's advice, seeing that his reputation is at stake, and Achilles agrees. Thersites comes in and reports that Ajax is now striding about the camp, completely puffed up with his own importance. Patroclus persuades the foul-tongued slave to talk Ajax into bringing Hector, safely conducted by Agamemnon, to Achilles' tent after their fight the next day, so that Achilles may speak with Hector. Act 4. Scene 1. Diomedes comes to Troy to make the exchange of Antenor for Cressida, and he is greeted heartily by Aeneas and Paris. Aeneas goes to fetch Cressida, remarking that this exchange will deal a heavy blow to Troilus. Paris concurs, but says regretfully that they have no choice. The bitter disposition of the time will have it so. After Aeneas is gone, Diomedes is asked who he thinks deserves Helen more, Paris or Menelaus. With great bitterness, the Greek replies that both deserve her, since both are fools, willing to pay a great price in blood for a whore. Scenes 2, 3. Meanwhile, as morning breaks, Troilus takes a regretful leave of Cressida while she pleads with him to stay a little longer. Padarus comes in and makes several bawdy jokes about their recent lovemaking. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door, and Cressida hides Troilus in her bedroom. Aeneas enters, and demands that Padarus fetch Troilus. When the young prince emerges, Aeneas tells him the sad news that Cressida must be sent to her father in the Greek camp. Troilus is distraught, and goes with Aeneas to see his father, Priam, while Padarus breaks the news to Cressida, who begins to weep. Scene 4. Troilus brings Diomedes, together with the great lords of Troy, to Cressida's house, and begs leave to say goodbye to his lady. When they are alone, he pledges to be faithful, and Cressida promises that even in the Greek camp, she will remain true to him. Then Diomedes is brought in, and Troilus demands that he use her well, for, by the dreadful Pluto, if thou dost not, though the great bulk Achilles be thy guard, I'll cut thy throat. Diomedes retorts that he will make no promises, he will treat Cressida as she deserves, but not because any Trojan prince orders him to. At that moment, a trumpet sounds, calling them all to the Greek camp for the duel between Hector and Ajax. Scene 5. In the Greek camp, the newly arrived Cressida is greeted by all the Greek commanders. Ulysses insists that she be kissed by everyone, only then refusing to kiss her himself, and when she is gone, he declares that she is a loose, unvirtuous woman. Then the Trojan lords arrive, and the conditions of the duel are set by Aeneas, who remarks that since Ajax and Hector are related, Hector's whole heart will not be in this fight. As the two combatants prepare, Agamemnon asks Ulysses what Trojan is that same that looks so heavy. Ulysses tells his general that the downcast Trojan is Troilus, and then goes on to praise him profusely, saying that Troilus may even be a greater man than Hector. Act 5. Scene 1. Achilles boasts to Patroclus how he will kill Hector. The two encounter Thersites, who delivers a letter to Achilles, and then unloads his usual torrent of abuse on them. Calling Patroclus Achilles' male varlet, his masculine whore, and on the entire campaign. The letter is from the Trojan princess, Polyxena, whom Achilles loves, and it begs him not to fight the next day. He tells Patroclus sadly that he must obey her wishes. They go out, and Thersites remains. He watches from the shadows as the feast breaks up. Most of the lords go to bed. But Diomedes slips off to see Cressida, and Ulysses and Troilus follow him. Noting that Diomedes is an untrustworthy, lustful rogue, Thersites follows him as well. Scene 2. At Calchas's tent, Diomedes calls to Cressida. Her father fetches her, while Troilus and Ulysses watch from one hiding place and Thersites from another. With Thersites' profanity and Troilus' shock providing a counterpoint, Diomedes woos Cressida, who behaves reluctantly but coyly toward his advances, fending him off for a time but never allowing him to leave. Eventually, she gives him a sleeve that Troilus presented to her as a love token, then she takes it back and says that she never wants to see Diomedes again. Then she softens, gives it to him once more, and promises to wait for him later, when he will come to sleep with her. When she is gone, and Diomedes too, Troilus is in agony, first denying the evidence seen with his own eyes, and then pledging to find Diomedes on the field of battle and kill him. Finally, as morning nears, Aeneas arrives to lead him back to Troy. Scene 3. Hector girds for battle, while the women, i.e. his wife, Andromache and his sister Cassandra, plead with him not to go. Both have had dreams that prophesies his death, but he dismisses their warnings. Troilus comes in and says that he will be fighting too. Indeed, he chides Hector for having been too merciful to his enemies in the past, saying that today Troilus plans to slay as many men as he can. Cassandra leads Priam in, and the old king pleads with his son not to fight, saying that he too feels foreboding about this day. But Hector refuses to listen and goes out to the battlefield. Padarus brings Troilus a letter from Cressida. Troilus tears it up and follows Hector out to the field. Scene 4. As the battle rages, Thersites wanders the field, escaping death by brazen cowardice. Scene 5. Another part of the plains, Agamemnon summarizes the ways the Greeks are doing badly in the battle, including that Dorius is taken prisoner and Patroclus probably slain. Then Nestor enters and says that there is 1,000 Hectors in the field. The scene ends with Achilles asking where Hector is. Scene 6. Troilus calls Diomed a traitor for capturing his horse. Diomed, Ajax and Troilus exit, fighting. Hector spares the unprepared Achilles, who boasts that Hector was simply fortunate to find him unarmed. Hector sees a Greek in ornate armor and pursues him. Scene 7. In another part of the plains, Menelaus and Paris enter the scene fighting. Thersites is confronted by a bastard son of Priam, but declares that as he is himself a bastard they have no business fighting each other. Scene 8. Achilles and his men find Hector, who has finished fighting and taken off his armor in order to try on the golden armor of the warrior he has conquered, surrounding the unarmed Trojan. They stab him to death. Scene 9. Agamemnon, Ajax, Menelaus, Nestor, Diomedes and others enter marching. Word arrives of the death of Hector. Scene 10. Left alone on the stage, the unhappy Padarus wonders why he should be so abused, when his services were so eagerly desired only a little while before. End of the summary. Thank you. Thank you.